Well, I've been trying to mostly do all of this in voiceover, but I'm thinking that's roughly about where the heater's gonna sit. I do believe the exhaust is gonna line up quite well with that factory hole that's down in there, and that is, we just had a grommet in there, and I think I'll be able to use that. I will drill another hole and run the fresh air intake or combustion air intake, you know, outside, like I did with the shed. So the plan is to kind of mount everything there. I'm gonna run the tube up through along this little ridge. There's a bit of a gap from where the plastics are and everything. There should be enough of a void there. If not, we may be able to run it up through here and kind of below where the, I don't know, whatever that is. There might be enough room up on the top. Well, we're gonna kind of play it by ear, see what happens. And I'm gonna have to obviously find an extension. For these smaller heaters, the 2 kilowatt, they are 60 millimeters is the size of the internal diameter pipe you're gonna need. 60 mil, unlike the bigger heaters are 75, I believe. These ones are 60. So anyways, if you can hear some background noise, I've got the 5 kilowatt heater running out here, keeping my toes warm, and just a bit of a tarp to kind of keep the wind off of me. So sorry for that wind noise and tarp noise. Anyways, that's where I'm at this stage in the process. The earlier part of the video I was planning on mostly just doing voiceover, so I didn't get much footage, and I really didn't feel like taking any video. This is going to be a specific install for each car anyways, like, you know, every car is going to be different, but this is what I've come up with. Been able to hide the heater kind of behind this panel and below. Another plastic piece that fits in here, and then the whole, that part of the trunk gets covered up by a big board that sits in there. And the only thing that's really going to be blatantly obvious is on this side. So over here, you're not going to see anything heater related. And you are going to see the fuel tank on this side, which I've used some mechanics wire to hold in place. And there's this little cutout panel that I decided I'd mount my controller there. It's, you know, away from the heat and whatnot. The heat duct runs out of the bottom, and kind of there's enough space behind here where it runs up. Not the best location, I guess, but you know, it'll work. It's right here. So what I'm kind of hoping is, you know, as people get in and out, they're not really going to hit this. This is not secure in here yet. The panel's got to be reinstalled properly there, but yeah, that's kind of where it's going to go. There's also another mount I was looking at for this. It's a flush mount, and you know, the vents actually pop out of it, so it would probably only stick out as much as my finger there, so it'd be a little bit more sleek. And then you know, it's going to be a little bit in the way of the seat belt, but I'd say 98% of the time nobody's sitting in my back seat anyways. This heater is sitting here running to keeping the silicone from freezing up while it cures. I gooped it on there pretty good. Now here's the part that everyone's going to probably flip out about is, you know, there is a couple bends in the exhaust. They're not super extreme, but I am concerned about it a little bit because of, I mean, with this heater, mind you, this one's the 5 kilowatt, so, but as you can see, that discoloration is from extreme heat. So just a quick little kind of midway through the project update. Where I'm at right now is wiring. Pretty much all the wires are ran. I got to zip tie some stuff up. This power wire I'm gonna run through the floor somewhere. I've already used the one grommet there for the exhaust, so I might be lucky and be able to find another grommet. If not, I'm gonna have to drill a hole. And I'm planning on running the power under the car along the frame rail. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull power from whichever one of these stays live, even when the key is off. So, and then I'll be ready for a test fire. But that's, you know, that's pretty much the gist of what's going on here. I'll show you it when it's all finished. And just because every car is going to be different. I figured I wasn't going to go ahead and show the entire process of installing this thing. The hardest part of it, I guess, would be just trying to find a spot to hide it away. And one of the things I guess I'll mention on is I did want to have the whole unit inside. Some people mount these outside. At the end of the day, these are cheap Chinese diesel heaters. They are not meant to weather the storm outside. Some people put them out there. If you want it to last you longer, I wouldn't recommend it. They are not watertight. There's electronics that are exposed in there. So that being said, you should also put it in a spot that's easily accessible. So I figured this was the best spot. There's two bolts at the bottom, one there and one here, and they're just for these little anchors in case you want to strap something in. There's a screw there and a push tab here, and then the rest of it just pulls off. So over here, I just have to replace this panel and that panel if I wanted to get rid of the holes, but I mean, you probably really wouldn't notice those if I took this system out and sold the car. I don't think you'd notice the holes. I could easily put a little grommet or push tab in there kind of thing that you'd never see them. And like these are tiny, these little holes here. So anyway, we'll cut to when this thing is all installed and I'm testing it out. Alright guys, so I've jumped to pretty much have everything installed here now. The fuel tank is all in there, put a bit of fuel into it, and I just got to button up, you know, a couple more wires with zip ties and everything. Everything's wired in. All my wires, ducting, it's all done. Everything's siliconed, sealed up. Unfortunately, you are going to hear probably in the background, I've got the two other heaters running, the one for the shed, and I've got this one running to dry the silicone that's underneath the car. Alright, so I'll give you a quick little lowdown here. Yep, this is a rat's nest, I know. I had some temporary wires going on here and I just didn't really know if I wanted to keep it or not, and whatever. So what I try to do with wiring is I always have my own fuses, and then I just piggyback off of this fuse panel. And in this fuse panel, some of them are key power, and then some of them are power all the time or battery power. So we're going with battery power. I just used a test light, so we'll plug that one will go in there, and then this lid will just close down, and just drilled a hole in the side there, and the wire through all this rat's nest here runs down and goes down along the frame. This one I actually did a proper job and put the split loom on it and everything and made it look nice. This stuff here is just temporary, and that'll be coming out anyways. And then I've got to do something to clean up the rest of that, but we're not here to worry about that right now. As for the job under the car, you know, there's the exhaust coming out. I did strap it to my car's exhaust. The main reason why I went this route, listen here carefully, because I know some people are like, oh, you could have hid it under there and everything like that. Yes, I could have, and there was a couple good spots that I could have done that. But I want this exhaust coming out away from the car. I don't want it to go underneath the car and collect under there, because the exhaust from here is extremely moist, I guess you could say. I put this brick here in front of this exhaust this morning, and it's already got a pretty good pile of ice going. Now, mind you, I cranked the heater up in the shed pretty high because I've had the door open, and I'm in and out, so it's just blowing through here. And but as you can see, quite a bit of moisture comes out of these heaters, and that's the reason why things like the muffler, there is actually a tiny little hole right here to allow the moisture to drain out of the muffler itself. So it's supposed to drain out of that, and you keep the exhaust pipe on an angle so the moisture can drain, otherwise it will collect. Now, so from the front of the passenger side there, I ran that wire underneath the car up to here, and it comes into there. So it comes into yet another hole here that I drilled, and The air intake for the heater is there, and the exhaust is there. Now, the exhaust is at a bit of an angle, so it comes down and bends and goes out at an angle, which, yeah, I know you try to minimize the amount of bends that you have in it, but I tried to utilize the hole that was already existing, and I didn't want to drill too many new holes in there, otherwise I'd have a gaping hole. And, you know, fellers don't like gaping holes. Sorry, what my plan was originally was to put in a turret plate in here, but because this is recessed down so far, like this is down about 5 or 6 inches in there, so if I put a turret plate in there, this whole heater would sit down farther, and there's just not enough space for that. So because of the way I had to route the air vent and all that stuff, and so as you can see, 4 minutes ago I plugged it in. So this thing hasn't done any form of startup. This is the very first startup on this 2 kilowatt XMZ D2. I bought another 2 kilowatt unit. It's the exact same one that's running in the shed. And like I said at the beginning, you are going to still hear the residual noise of the other 2 heaters going. It is what it is. You'll probably see the smoke coming out and whatnot. I did want to do the fuel priming mode. Okay, so everyone was telling me online that in the very first power on state, which is what it is now, I just plugged it into the battery. I guess if you kind of mess this up and you press the wrong button first, you can just unplug the controller and plug it back in again, and it should work. But I haven't tested this series, so the first thing I'm going to do is do what they're saying. You press the down regulation button and hold it until it starts to count down from 300, and that should put it into fuel pumping mode, fuel priming mode. So press and hold down. Holy Dinah. What happened though? It just lost power. Okay, let's plug it back in. Uh-oh. Nothing's happening. Well, what in the devil? Have I got a bad ground? Okay, well that was interesting. I'll go back up to the front here and disconnect the main power. Plug it back in. See what happens. Disconnect. Reconnect. Still got nothing back here now. Okay, so do I have power up front now? I've still got power up here. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so I've still got power up front for some reason, but no power back here. So what the hell happened? This is why you test everything before you button everything back up. But I'm only getting 4 volts here for some reason. So there's the issue. Alright, so I think it was just a bad ground. I'll clean up that mating surface, I guess. Yeah, so I got 12.4 volts. Must have been. What else would it be? And she turned on just fine and dandy. Okay, solved. Background there. A little bit of sandpaper, fix that up. Perfect. Okay. Alright, let's try this again. Okay, so first power on again here. And we're going to press and hold the down button until it shows 300. A hard hat light might be. You press and hold for like 5 seconds, and then she just boom, fires right up. Looks like it's might take a minute for this to. Oh, and another thing too, these caps. If I can get this to focus. These caps, they got like a piece of plastic in there, and what happens if you leave that in there? It's supposed to stop the fuel from sloshing out, but if you leave it in there, it ends up sucking a vacuum on the tank and collapsing the tank. Well, there you have it, though. I guess that's there's a little addition to how the fuel prime works. It's very first thing you got to do is prime the fuel. Don't touch any other buttons. Press that down button and hold it until it'll just start counting down and immediately fire right up. Works good. I'm gonna go ahead and tidy up all this mess that's here, these wires and everything like that. Throw in some zip ties while I'm waiting for the fuel to prime, and then I'll just cut this to once we're ready to fire this up. Are you guys ready for a first fire up on the 2 kilowatt car diesel heater? Was that lame or what? Maybe that's lame. Anyways, you probably can't see the heater controller. I've gone ahead and already primed the fuel. I had to run it a second time because the fuel only made it to like here. And to do so, I just unplugged the controller and plugged it back in, and then pressed and held the down button again, and it worked. But you do have to unplug it and plug it back in once it's done that first cycle. Otherwise it won't work. So I've gotten the fuel up to where the pump is, and it started trickling down. Now at this point, with the way the heater worked inside of the shed, I was able to just turn it on, and it worked pretty good. I do not want to over prime the fuel and drive a bunch of fuel into the combustion chamber and start having issues with backfiring, which we're going to find out if that's going to happen. So I shut it off as soon as I seen it coming out of the tip of just the tip of the pump. So, okay, we're going to press on, and
Start heating.
it is in auto, so I'm going to put it in level, and I'm going to crank it right up full. High as she'll go. I can hear the glow plug just turned on. Keep in mind the exhaust pipe is here for that heater, so you should see some and smell a little bit of fuel there, so it must have had a little bit trickle down there. Just looking for any leaks and stuff like that. And yeah, now I know what you guys are gonna say too. Oh, you used that green fuel line, that shit's garbage. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had any issues with it yet, to be honest. I changed out fuel line on my 8 kilowatt, and I was just moving it around. I'm not using it right now. I was moving it around in the shed there, and I noticed that fuel line, the stuff I changed it to was stuff from Canadian Tire, and it's the fuel line's gone hard now. So I suspect that's going to crack soon or start to give me issues. One thing I should mention is that there is another brand of these heaters that's sold in Canada. I can't quite think of the name off the top of my head. I should have wrote it down because I'm filming with my phone. Anyways, regarding fuel line, there is some hard line that you can get, and luckily all of this stuff, it looks like I really destroyed the back of this car, but it all comes out easy. So I probably will switch that line out once it comes in, but it's the holidays right now, and you know, the wait times on everything. All right. Hear that noise? We've got ignition. Absolutely zero smoke on this startup. This one's working great. No smoke yet, anyways. Once she gets given her here, we'll see. Now what I'm also doing is, because some of that supply heat line there, I had to sandwich it down. It's not pancaked, obviously, but I did have to kind of make it more oval than it is round. Only in the one spot where it right comes out of the heater. It's not ideal, I know, but that's how I was able to keep it behind the panels. And that's really my only option for keeping it behind the panels, is where it's routed. So let's jump around to the side. So that air is coming out of here. And I was worried about airflow, but no, it's flowing great. If I had hair, you'd see my hair just right in the breeze here. Oh my goodness. This car's gonna be cooking. Wicked. Now I'm telling you guys, for the price of these heaters, how can you go wrong? They're so easy to install. I mean, yeah, this is my second day of doing it, and I'm also fighting some health concerns with it, so I'm really going slow with it and stuff and whatnot. So I would say if I was in my normal abilities, this is definitely a day job, and especially if you did it in the summer, you weren't doing it in the winter like me. But hey, December in Alberta has been really warm for some reason this year. Even at this morning it was -12. You know, if you've got other heaters sitting around, you can still dry all your silicone and RTV sealant and whatever you're trying to do there, but it's not brutal, I suppose. And yeah, I guess I'm just going to go ahead and put this panel back together. I am going to shut off the camera here, and I'm going to keep an eye on this RTV. I want to let it run for a bit, and I just want to see if that's going to really start to cook or something. I don't want the RTV sealant to start to burn in here, so I do want to keep an eye on that, because it is running on high. When you run them on high, they get very hot. Now, I think typically this thing's probably just going to run on 1 or 2 bars, so. But yeah, great success. I am starting to smell some smelling, so I'm going to get to paying attention to this thing. Alright guys, so I just figured I'd give you a quick little tour of what this is actually looking like in here. So I got my controller over there, and then the fuel tank, and then on this side, oh look, you can't see anything. So that's all you can see is the fuel tank and the controller back here. Everything else is hidden. Everything else is hidden behind these panels. So to access it, you know, I've got my normal trunk lid. This pops up and out, and I can get right at it underneath in there. I'm not sure if you can see that too well, but it's down in there. So, you know, it's still accessible quite easily. This panel just goes back in there, slaps in. This panel drops down, and yeah, you don't even know it's there. Now you'll notice up here I've put the seat belt out of the way, and that's just because of where I've got the vent. Now there is a void right here. I could have put the vent right here, I suppose, but I kind of wanted that to be going more towards the front of the cabin. That way, you know, when there's snow and ice on the windows, my hope is that I can leave this run overnight and melt all that off on days where it's going to be crappy, or fire it up from inside the house and preheat the vehicle, whatever I feel like doing. Alright guys, so I know this video is going to be a bit you know, patched together, especially towards the front of it, but you know, each vehicle is going to be vehicle specific for where you're putting the heater and what you're going to do with running lines and location of everything, stuff like that. It's vehicle specific. Unless you got a 2021 Toyota RAV4, it's not going to be much use for you. That being said, I did glance over a few of the things that I did here or there. It is not the best install, I know that. If you can manage to have a turret plate, it's basically you're going to drill a big 5-inch hole through the base of the vehicle if you can find a good spot, and that's just going to allow you to have access to the exhaust and the intake and the fuel line much easier from underneath the vehicle. And I would have preferred to do that, but the way I've got it set up, you know, it couldn't happen like that. I had to use that mounting bracket and then use RTV sealant. So if I ever have to remove it, which you do need to service these things once a year, maybe twice a year, but I'm going to have a hell of a time with that RTV sealant, and I know that going into it. Second thing that I am probably going to change in the future, but I am testing all these green fuel lines that come with the heaters. Everybody keeps saying that we're having issues, but this is my 4th heater now. I've never had any issues with the green fuel line, so time will tell on that one. The only other thing that I'll mention is that I'm planning to run a cleaner through the diesel, so probably once every couple of tanks I'm going to mix in maybe some seafoam. Seafoam seems to work really good on diesel engines, so if I run some seafoam in there, maybe it will kind of prolong my intervals of having to physically take the heater out and service it. That's what I'm hoping anyways. We'll see how that plays out. That being said, thanks again for watching, guys. I do appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you on the next video.